Before the world taught you how to survive, you were just a child who wanted to be loved. Just a small heartbeat trying to feel safe in a world that didn't always feel safe. It begins quietly, almost unnoticed. You're 7 years old, staring into the eyes of a parent who is slowly falling apart. Maybe it's addiction, maybe it's anger, or maybe it's that heavy silence that fills a room when someone has given up. And in that silence, something ancient clicks inside you. A thought far too old for a child. If I don't hold everything together, no one will. That's the beginning of an invisible disappearance. Not of your body, but of your childhood. You start smiling more and crying less. You learn to read the room before you speak. You learn when to stay quiet, when to comfort, when to disappear. You become the peacekeeper in a home that doesn't feel peaceful. You become the helper, the responsible one, the strong one. And everyone praises you for it. They call you mature. They say you're wise for your age. They tell you how proud they are that you don't cause trouble. But no one ever asks what it cost you to be that way. Because behind those smiles, something sacred begins to fade. The freedom to be small, the right to need, the right to cry, the right to just be a child. You start holding your breath, not literally, but emotionally. You start carrying weights no child should carry. And the world claps for you, not realizing you're breaking in silence. This is how many stories like yours begin. With quiet rooms, tired parents, and children who learn to disappear by being good. But here's the thing no one tells you. That survival instinct, that deep need to keep everyone okay, doesn't fade when you grow up. It follows you. It shapes how you love, how you rest, how you breathe, and it becomes the invisible script your whole life starts following. You don't even realize it's happening. You just keep going. Because it's what you've always done. You take care. You hold peace. You survive. But deep down, something inside you whispers, "Who's going to take care of me?" That voice, the one that asks for softness. That's the voice of the child you left behind. The one who never stopped waiting to be seen. You grow up learning that love is earned. That being calm keeps the peace. That being useful keeps you safe. You become the fixer, the helper, the one who holds everything together when everyone else falls apart. You start to believe that if you're not helping, you're not worthy. If you're not holding it all up, everything might collapse. So you carry it. All of it. You carry the tension in your body, the fear in your stomach, the guilt in your chest. And you do it so well that people start to think you're built for it. They see your strength, but not your exhaustion. They see your composure, but not your fear. They see the way you hold others, but never notice how no one's holding you. You learn to smile even when your heart aches. You learn to stay quiet when you want to scream. You learn to protect others from pain, even if it means hiding your own. And when people tell you how strong you are, a part of you feels proud. But another part aches, because you never chose to be that strong. You became that way because you had no other choice. You learned early that peace isn't given, it's managed. That safety isn't a feeling, it's something you build by keeping everyone around you calm. And so you spend your life scanning for danger, reading faces, listening for changes in tone. Even as an adult, your body stays ready. Ready to fix, ready to soothe, ready to adjust. It's not a conscious choice anymore. It's who you've become. You walk into rooms and instantly feel the mood. You sense tension before anyone speaks. You know when someone's angry, when they're disappointed, when they're about to explode. And before they do, you shrink yourself just enough to keep the peace. People call it empathy. But deep down, you know it's more like survival. You learn that to be loved, you have to earn it. That to be safe, you have to predict what's coming next. And you've done it for so long that calm feels unfamiliar. Stillness feels like something bad is about to happen. You don't rest easily. You stay busy. You stay helpful. Because being needed is the only way you've ever felt secure. The world still calls you dependable. But inside, you feel unseen. Like you've lived your whole life performing a version of yourself built to protect others, not to be free. And the saddest part is, you've worn that role so convincingly that even you start to believe it's who you really are. You tell yourself you're fine. You tell yourself you're strong. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. But deep down, there's a quiet voice asking, when will someone finally see me? The years go by, and that survival pattern becomes second nature. You keep showing up, you keep managing, you keep giving. It looks like strength from the outside, but inside it's exhaustion dressed as control. You don't know how to rest without feeling guilty. You don't know how to say no without feeling selfish. You don't know how to receive without thinking you owe something in return. Somewhere along the way, you stopped believing that love could be safe. You stopped believing that care could come without conditions. So you keep giving, over and over, hoping someone will finally see how tired you are. But most people don't. They only see the strong one, the reliable one, the one who has it all together. They come to you when they're falling apart. And you help them, because that's what you've always done. You listen, you comfort, you fix. You pour out everything you have, and then wonder why you feel empty when you're alone. You confuse peace with silence. You confuse exhaustion with accomplishment. You confuse being needed with being loved. And even when life finally slows down, your mind doesn't. It keeps scanning for danger, for tension, for something that might go wrong. Your nervous system never got the message that the war is over. You might have grown up, but inside you're still that child, waiting for things to explode, waiting for someone to get angry, waiting for the moment safety disappears again. That's what trauma does. It rewires your sense of normal. It teaches your body that chaos is home and calm is suspicious. So when someone is kind to you, it feels strange. When someone loves you without asking for anything, it feels like a trick. You start to look for the catch. You wait for the moment it changes, because it always did before. And without realizing it, you push away the very thing you've been longing for. You keep people at a safe distance. You give them everything except your vulnerability, because being vulnerable once meant getting hurt. You say you're fine, even when you're not. You smile, even when you're breaking. You make sure everyone around you feels comfortable, even when you're quietly drowning. And the world applauds you for it. They see a kind, capable, strong person. But you know what it's really built on? A lifetime of holding your breath. It's not your fault. You learned to survive the only way you could. But survival isn't the same as living. And at some point, your heart starts to ask for more. It starts to ask, what would it feel like to rest? What would it feel like to stop performing? What would it feel like to finally be seen? Not for what you do, but for who you are. That's when the truth begins to rise. The truth that you've built a life out of strength, but not safety. A life full of care for others, but little space for yourself. And deep down, you know something has to change. As you move through life, the old wounds follow you quietly. They don't always scream. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they hide behind success, or busyness, or humor. You learn to overachieve, to prove your worth. You learn to stay independent, so you'll never have to depend on anyone again. You tell yourself it's strength, but deep down, it's fear. Fear of needing what once hurt you. You become the friend who listens to everyone but rarely speaks about yourself. The one who says, I'm fine, even when you're not. The one who carries everyone else's pain because yours still feels too heavy to name. You attract people who need saving because saving feels familiar. You give until you're drained because being needed feels safer than being loved. You confuse control with security. And when someone offers real intimacy, you flinch, not because you don't want it, but because part of you still believes love always comes with a cost. You struggle to rest, to slow down, to trust that you're allowed to just be. Stillness makes you uneasy. Quiet makes you restless. Because somewhere inside, your body still believes that peace means danger is coming. So you stay busy. You stay productive. You stay strong. Because if you keep moving, maybe the pain won't catch up. But it always does. It shows up in small ways. In the way your chest tightens when someone raises their voice. In the way you apologize for crying. In the way you can't accept kindness without explaining why you deserve it. It shows up in the way you love, carefully, cautiously, always prepared to be disappointed. It shows up in your body, the tension in your shoulders, the exhaustion that sleep can't fix. It shows up in the loneliness you feel even when you're surrounded by people. These are not flaws. They're echoes of what you survived. They're the body's memory of a time it had to grow up too soon. And you start to realize that the same habits that once protected you are now keeping you trapped. That the same strength that once kept you safe is now the very thing that keeps you tired. You've spent so long managing everyone else's emotions that you've forgotten how to feel your own. You've spent so long trying to be strong that you've forgotten how to be soft. You've spent so long surviving that you've forgotten how to live. But the truth is, the child inside you never really disappeared. They're still there, quiet and waiting. Still asking the same question they asked all those years ago. Why didn't anyone protect me? And that's where healing begins. Not by running from that question, but by finally turning toward it. By listening to the parts of you that were never heard. by letting yourself feel what you weren't allowed to feel before. Because that child doesn't need you to be stronger. They need you to be present. They need you to stop performing and start listening. They need to hear you say the words no one ever said. You didn't deserve that. You were just a child. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't arrive like a miracle. It begins quietly, in the smallest of ways. It begins the moment you stop running from your story. The moment you decide to sit with your truth, even if it hurts. The moment you realize that surviving isn't the same as being alive. You start to notice the patterns. The way you rush to fix things that aren't yours to fix. The way you apologize for existing when you take up space. The way you push away love because it feels too unfamiliar. And instead of judging yourself for it, you begin to get curious. Why do I do this? When did I learn that love meant pleasing others? When did I start believing that my needs were too much? That curiosity, that gentle awareness, is where healing begins. Not in perfection, not in pretending everything's okay, but in slowing down long enough to ask yourself, what am I still carrying that isn't mine to hold anymore? You start to realize that the version of you who always had to be strong was never meant to carry so much. You begin to understand that the walls you built to protect yourself are the same ones keeping love out. Healing is learning to take those walls down, brick by brick. It's learning that you're allowed to need others. It's learning that softness is not weakness. It's learning that rest is not laziness. You don't heal by forcing yourself to forget the past. You heal by allowing yourself to remember, without shame, without blame. You let yourself grieve for what you lost. The birthdays that went unnoticed. The moments you had to grow up too fast. The safety you never felt. Grief isn't a step backward. It's a doorway. It's your body finally releasing what it held for too long. And when you let yourself feel that pain, something inside you finally exhales. You start to see that the child who tried so hard to keep everyone safe wasn't broken, they were brave. They did the best they could with what they had. And now, they need you to do something different. They need you to choose peace. To rest when you're tired. To say no when you need to stop shrinking just to make others comfortable. You begin to talk to yourself gently. You begin to treat yourself the way you always treated everyone else. With patience, care, and kindness. That's what true healing looks like. Not pretending to be okay, but learning to be okay with not being okay. It's in the quiet mornings when you don't rush. It's in the deep breath you take before saying yes to something you don't want. It's in the moment you finally realize you don't have to earn love anymore. You were always worthy of it. Even when no one said so. Even when no one showed you. Even when you had to give it to everyone but yourself. This is what coming home to yourself begins to feel like. Strange at first, but slowly, it starts to feel right. There comes a day when you look in the mirror and realize you no longer see a stranger staring back. The eyes that once looked tired and guarded now hold something softer, something alive. You've stopped running. You've stopped fighting every memory. You've stopped blaming yourself for what you couldn't control. You start to move through the world differently. You speak slower. You breathe deeper. You choose peace over chaos, even when chaos feels familiar. And the people around you notice. Not because you've become louder, but because your silence feels lighter. Your energy no longer demands to be understood. It simply exists. You begin to forgive. Not because what happened was okay, but because you deserve the freedom that forgiveness brings. You stop needing apologies from others. Because you've learned how to give closure to yourself. You realize healing was never about fixing yourself. It was about remembering you were never broken. You were only hurt. And hurt things can heal. You start to see beauty in ordinary things again. The sound of rain, the warmth of morning light, the way the wind moves through the trees. You laugh again, and this time it feels real. You begin to dream, not from fear, but from love. You begin to love, not for validation, but for connection. You begin to live, not to prove anything, but simply because you can. The world hasn't changed, but you have, and that changes everything. You no longer chase people who don't choose you. You no longer explain your worth to those who refuse to see it. You no longer apologize for outgrowing what once felt like home. Because now, you've built a home within yourself. A place where your heart can finally rest. A place where the child in you can breathe again. A place where you don't need permission to exist. You understand now that healing isn't a destination. It's a practice, a quiet decision you make every day. To choose yourself, even when it's hard. There will still be days that hurt. There will still be nights that feel heavy. But now, you meet them differently. You meet them with grace. You meet them with love. Because you know that even in the pain, you are safe now. You are enough now. And you are free now. So you take a deep breath. Look at how far you've come. And whisper the words that once felt impossible. I'm proud of me. And in that moment, you're not healing anymore. You are healed. You are home.